there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. In the first hour of the broadcast, I'm going to give you content, information for better sex, more money, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice, more strategies and gambits for having it all. The second hour is what I'm most excited about. It's when I get a chance to chat with you. Yes, you. Where you can call in, talk to me, ask me questions. And if you say the secret word of the day, you could win $5,000 cash. At the very least, if you're the most interesting call of the day, you could also win 10 ounces of freshly minted Marshall Silver 999 Fine Silver. All of that and more. Brand new Mercedes-Benz sedan or SUV up for grabs. My personal Rolls-Royce Phantom up for grabs. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information about its release coming up. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. I'm Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker.
Let me bring in our hypnotist, Marshall Silver.
It's Marshall Silver, ladies and gentlemen, the world's fastest hypnotist.
Hello there and welcome home. You must appreciate where you are now because where you're at later will be where you're at now then. It just makes sense. Living in the past is depression. You can't change it. You can learn from it. Living in the future is anxiety. What you are worried about may not happen. And even if it does happen, it may not be bad for you, may actually be the best thing ever possible. I was married twice before I met my one true wife, and I'm glad that I was. It lets me know how great my bride really is. I've been rich, I've been poor. Rich is way more fun. I highly recommend it. And I also know, though, that both are temporary, that the more you appreciate where you are, the greater your blessings are, simply because the rich get richer. Gratitude is not just an attitude, it is a strategy. And I recommend you practice that strategy starting today. Nick Alfano is a dynamic former attorney turned serial entrepreneur who's dedicated his career to elevating other people's lives. As the founder of The Program, Nick has masterfully combined his sharp legal acumen and entrepreneurial grit to guide hundreds of men toward achieving goals they once thought were unattainable, amassing significant increases in their net worth along the way. Nick shares his journey from the courtroom to the boardroom and beyond, detailing how he inspires his clients to show up different and do hard shit, two mantras that form the backbone of his coaching philosophy. Listeners today will learn how adopting these sayings can fundamentally transform their professional and personal lives, propelling them from success to significance. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a professional seeking to transcend your current limits, or you're simply someone interested in the intersection of profit and purpose, Nick's compelling insights and proven strategies are sure to resonate with you. Please, a nice big Marshall Silver welcome in the chat for Nick Alfano. Welcome home, Nick.
Thanks for having me. That was hands down the best intro ever. I think I've done over 100 podcasts, and I don't think ChatGPT could write something better than that. That was well done.
It's my style, baby.
Man,
and all true. That's what I love about it. I don't say a word that's not true. You're remarkable. You've done some remarkable things, made some massive shifts. Before we got on the air, you were telling me that you're in Nashville, Tennessee,
Yep.
and that you had lived in SoCal for a while, all due to a woman, of course.
100%.
And because that's the way it works.
Mhm.
And so catch us up. Tell us about you. Tell us about the program, and tell us why anybody wants to listen to us today.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I can't thank you enough for that warm welcome. Like, I got paid a lot of money to be a legal wordsmith, and that was some professional wordsmithing. I absolutely love that. So Yeah, serial entrepreneur for 20 some years. I'm now 40. I'll be 43 next month. We were babies having babies.
Well, that's a big leap. That's 3 years in 1 month, dude.
I know. Isn't that crazy? I'm time traveling.
Crazy.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. You're impressive.
So I literally I've been my wife 24 years. It's a very checkered, rough story. Cheated on her for 17 of those. That was an absolute womanizer, if you want to call it that. So I met my wife in 6th grade, and we started dating in high school, and we've been together since. But if you were to add up all the days in those 24 years, there's probably a 2 or 3 year gap where on again, off again, like many relationships. And essentially, born in the South, moved to SoCal, extremely poor, food stamps, the whole nine. I had a huge chip on my shoulder. I was homeless from 14 on, as a result of just a really rough upbringing. Again, the way you raise your children in the South is not the same as you're allowed to raise them in Southern California. So they put a stop to the way things were going on inside of our 4 walls, which led to, again, separation from the parents. And then I went off and did my own thing. I say that to say I operated with this chip on my shoulder mentality for several years, built some pretty cool things, put myself through law school, built a law firm, built 2 8-figure companies, and then thought I was the man. So I thought it was okay to, bang my chest like King Kong every time I stepped out of the house and basically do whatever I want because I brought home the money. That was one of many stories I was married to. And so wasn't the best husband in the world or the best father. And it was actually 5 years ago, so 5.5, on December 12th, 2018, I went to my first little, experience. It was actually in San Diego. And one man said one sentence from one stage, and it just pierced my soul, spoke right through me and pushed me out of my chair.
What was it they said?
He said this. He said, "In a world full of liars, the truth is a declaration of war." And, I had recently had this, what I call man in the mirror moment, which is an exercise we take all of our men through. But I basically just got done sleeping with a random girl on Instagram. This was in Corona, California. And I was separated from my wife for about a year, had my own apartment. And I just looked in the mirror and absolutely, hated the dude that was looking back at me. And for all intents and purposes, like I checked every box under the sun. I had 7 figures, passive income, sports cars, house, hot wife, beautiful children. Like if there's a box, muscles, tattoos, if there's a box you're supposed to check, like if Instagram says it's cool, I checked it, but who are you at your core was like the powerful question that kept bubbling up as I looked in the mirror. Because if they took all of that away, if you take all the accolades and the things and the accomplishments and like, who am I? And I just, I couldn't answer it. And the things that were coming up were not what I wanted to align with. So I went on my journey. And since then I've just been, helping dudes be better dudes. And we specifically work with male entrepreneurs because our mission statement is impact over income. And so I want to show guys how to make as much money as possible so they can do something positive with that money before they leave this earth. And,
I think that's kind of common amongst men that produce at a high level. Napoleon Hill devoted an entire chapter in Think and Grow Rich to the concept of sexual transmutation, to the idea that highly successful men, because that's who he studied, because it was very sexist during his time, that very successful men were also very highly sexed and often had mistresses or, side chicks. Mm-hmm. And that was extremely common. And even, in a lot of the world, especially some of the European countries, it's not uncommon for that to happen. But I would also agree that, I had the same experience, that I had a lot of money, I had a lot of fame, I had a lot of talent. I have an unfair advantage in the skill set department being a hypnotist. And when before I met my wife, I just asked God, because with all that also comes consequences, right? 100%. If you're in a relationship, that's all sorts of consequences. But even if you're not in a relationship, the consequence of sleeping with a lot of different people is all their drama. You get a little piece of it, no matter how much you want to avoid it, you get some of that leaked back onto you. And so I got to the point where no matter how many gorgeous women I was dating, what I really wanted was no drama. And I was wired to believe that they went together, that, a woman that was attractive and fun to be around and the sex was good, that she was just going to be drama. That was the price to pay.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I met my wife, who's stunningly beautiful, ridiculously sexy after 17 years, hot as the day I met her, hotter actually, smart and funny, and just has a real good disposition. She's the whole package.
Yeah.
And, I didn't realize that existed. And then when I did realize that existed, my whole life, like I'm sure yours did, just got easy, because it wasn't all about me anymore. It was about, as I'm sure you teach your guys, being a better person and being somebody that every day I wake up and I say, I like Marshall Silver. So tell me more about the program. Tell me about, the kinds of stuff that you teach. Obviously, you're working with men, which I admire, because men don't get a lot of attention. There's a book by Dax and Darius Rucker right now. I'm sure you've heard it, called What It's Like to Be a Man. And the first time I heard that song, I bawled my eyes out. I still have a hard time listening to it without having a real emotional response, because I don't think that it's talked about much, what it's like to be a man and the responsibilities we have and the pressure we feel, not just to provide, but also to have an appearance of masculinity when we're scared out of our brains.
Yeah.
So tell me what you teach people.
Yeah, well, to that point, I'll start there. You said the word, I was wired that way, and that's essentially what the program represents. The program is just another word for your subconscious mind, which is your program, which does run 95% of your life. And so when you realize that you didn't write your own program, you've never been in control of it, and you don't know how to rewire it and reprogram it. And until you do, it's hard to win this game. That's like the premise of what we do is about 80% businessman and 20% business plan. And, I've spent almost $500,000 in personal development in the last 5 years. And I have this like obsession with giving it all away, because I want to prove my thesis, which is I'll lay down the next 8-figure, anything you want at your feet, the blueprint, the hack, the marketing funnel, the strategy. I'll get you in front of the guy. I'll get you the guru, whatever you want. I've probably taken the course, read the book, hired the guru. I'm going to lay it down at your feet at no cost. All I ask is in 6 months, when your life has not changed at all, you come have a conversation with me, because every man out there is stuck in some sort of loop of self-sabotage. They're in their own way to some degree. And so, essentially what we do at the program is we just help dudes get out of their own way, because it's a giant game of pattern recognition, pattern interrupt, and then having the tools to develop patterns that actually serve you. And, it's just been a really crazy ride. And I firmly believe, and this is a quote from Rory Vaden, who runs Brand Builders, who, puts some pretty big books out, My Let's, you name it. There's a best-selling book. Brand Builders is probably behind it. But he has a sentence that hits pretty hard, which is, you are most uniquely qualified and powerfully positioned to help the person that you used to be. And so 9% of the people that are attracted to my message are stuck in some sort of loop, and they finally wake up and realize it, or they want someone to help wake them up, and then we get to work. So the program is literally, like, I use another analogy called car and driver, whereby everyone wants to build this Ferrari or F1. Nowadays it's the Tesla, right? They want to build this phenomenal machine to get them from A to B, but the reality is the driver behind the wheel is not ready to even make turn 2. He's not equipped. So it doesn't matter if I even put you, if I put you in Tesla tomorrow, what happens if we pull what's his name out, Elon Musk out? What happens to that company? Conversely, I take Elon Musk and I drop him in your company. Maybe you're a startup, maybe you're 2 years in trying to break that next plateau, and not his money, just who he is at his core. His mindset, the way he shows up, the way his energy, the way he carries himself. And so it just blows my mind that people keep going to these seminars, groups, and masterminds and things, and expect that something's going to unlock, because all they need is that magical pixie dust or formula that they think Marshall Silver has it. And the reality is it's who Marshall is at his core, and who he's been working on himself to be. It has nothing to do with some magic formula that he's discovered, other than, show up and do hard shit. Do the work on self, do subconscious work, or don't count. It doesn't do anything for you.
When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was a magician, and I really wanted to explode my magic career. And I became great friends with David Copperfield's general manager. And I would call him up and I'd go, who's David's agent? And I would go chase down the agent and see if I could get them to represent me. And who's David's producer, and who's David's attorney? Yeah. And I remember after one of the conversations and requests, my buddy Chris, he said, I'll tell you who all these people are, and I'll give you the contact info. I'll give you their phone number. I don't care. But you need to understand something. David Copperfield made David Copperfield. Nobody else.
The question is, who's David? Yeah.
Right. Right.
Not who's
And
David's
and
ex. Yeah.
well, and that's the question right there. And who are all of us on the day that we were born? Because we will do who we are. And so until who we are changes, we won't change what we do. We'll keep coming back to those old habits because it's who we are.
Yep.
And so, I train speakers how to monetize. I teach them how to sell. And one of the first lessons I've got to teach them is you are doing your prospect, your customer, your student a disservice by not selling them your program if you believe in what you're teaching and what you're selling. If
Yeah.
you don't believe in it, yeah, you're criminal if you sell it. But if you do believe in what you're selling, you are morally and ethically obligated to sell it. Don't feel bad. Don't think they can't afford it, because thinking they can't afford it is thinking they can't measure up. And that's an insult.
Yeah.
And I myself know that my greatest advances happened when I just looked at myself and I said, this isn't frickin' me. I remember one day I was 23 years old, January 18th, 1985, and I'm looking at a mirror filled with cocaine. It's 3 a.m, and I'm playing some brain dead game with my then at the time girlfriend, because that's what we did when we were flying high as a kite. And I looked down at the mirror and I realized I don't want to explain to my unborn son, my future son, do as daddy says, not as daddy does.
Yeah.
And I stood up, grabbed the mirror, went to the bathroom, dumped it down the toilet. She started screaming, "What are you doing? What are you doing? We could have sold that."
Yeah.
And I said, we would have sold it to our friends, and I'm not killing them anymore.
Oof.
And she moved out 1 week later. Every single friend I had gone. I called up the dealers and I said, you sell me drugs again, I'll turn you to the police. This is not good for my life. So I couldn't get it, so I couldn't do it. But the byproduct was I had no friends. I had no girlfriend. She's gone. And I was forced to have the new guy exist in the world. And again, you look back at all those turning points, those pivotal moments where you realize I did the right. It was hard. It was hard shit. And I did the right thing there. And yeah, I look back and I'm so glad that I did. Can't imagine where my life would have ended up. I joke about it. When I was a cocaine addict, I wasn't wealthy enough to kill myself. And now I am.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
thank you, God.
Yeah,
Thanks a
that
lot.
habit with these resources could be a deadly combination, quite literally. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
in order for things to change, it's the simple adage. In order for
So let me
things
ask
to
you this
change,
real quick, if you don't mind. What do
Yeah.
can you recall why that internal dialogue happened, and then obviously the external, action taking? Like, what in that moment with the girl doing the thing, looking in the mirror, like what was the actual pivotal inflection
Yeah,
point? If you will?
absolutely.
Yeah.
My father was a raging alcoholic, and he was mean to me. He wasn't a mean man. He was a good man. And I know that for whatever reason, his wiring toward me, his program toward me
Yeah.
was not good. And I think it was heartbreak on his part. I think he loved my mom. And I think that when they broke up, he took his resentments of the breakup out on me. That's what I think. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But the change for me was the same thing that motivates me the most now. I love my children. And even though they weren't born back then, I really said, I don't want my son, because I always wanted a son named Sterling Silver. I said, I don't want my son to suffer through what I suffered through. And even though he wasn't, I didn't even find the girl yet to have the boy with. But I
Yeah, so that's what's
knew.
interesting about that concept you're speaking of. Most people don't have the foresight to say, well, when I have a kid, to your point, like, because I have a very popular sentence I say from stage a lot, which is, your son will become you and your daughter will marry you. And if that's not
Yes.
enough to like get you moving in the right direction, I don't know what to tell you. And I make my guys hold up a mirror and chant that sentence several times, because those are the facts. Like you said, it doesn't matter what dad says. They're always watching. They're watching every move. You know what I mean? Like, it's I'm sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, I think it's weird. Well, it's impressive to be able to have that level of foresight when the kid's not there. And like to your point, the female's not even there to create the experience of having a child. So, I mean, you're thinking several years into the future, and then still making that pivot, because most people be like, well, that's down the road. I don't need to change yet. Kid's not here. Yeah.
Well, and you're, what you just added to that, your son will become you and your daughter will marry you. The daughter will marry you piece, I don't think every man thinks about. That was the last transformation for me. I had 2 sons, and I admit I was still a scoundrel while my sons were born. I was. I'm a pleasant man. I'm a kind human being. I'm not mean. I wasn't, mean or untrustworthy with my wife. It's just I was a scoundrel still. And then when my daughter was born, my brain fried.
Yeah.
And I just said, you need to up your game, because I would agree wholeheartedly with you. I married my mother. My wife married her dad for sure.
Mhm.
He and I are very much alike. But the idea that I need to level up for my children, I really want them to have better examples. I'm okay with them seeing my weaknesses as long as they know I know they're my weaknesses and I'm working on them. And,
That's another thing I think more dads fall short, by the way, is they don't want to ever expose. That's vulnerable, right? And to be vulnerable in front of your kids is to be weak. Is the story? It's about that superhero cape. Like, are you willing to, like, when I made this pivot and I burned the boats, we went from 7 figures passive to $0 because dad had a moral epiphany and wanted to speak truth for the rest of his life, and my kids, had nice things that you can imagine. And it was very difficult to have a conversation around, like, hey, again, dad had a moral epiphany, so let's pull the $40,000 cars and let's calm down on sending you to Europe, and let's just calm down a minute because dad's got to rethink how can he, to your point, monetize from a stage his purpose, what he's ultimately supposed to be doing here. And that was difficult for me. And it actually took me longer than I'd like to admit, because I did not want to show that level of vulnerability or weakness because I wasn't ready,
Yeah, and I see it. You mentioned back on the speaking thing. I believe we teach what we most need to learn, which is why I love my life so much.
Yeah.
Is that what I went through a very dark period where I was being attacked by the government for something I hadn't done. And whether people want to believe it or not, you're guilty until proven innocent. You are.
I'm in it now, brother.
I was being threatened with 27 years in prison for something I hadn't done. I'm going through a divorce. I was married 11 months. The divorce has taken 4.5 years because my ex is dating the judge and the counselor we were seeing. The girlfriend I'm dating is the girlfriend from hell. She's robbing me, literally taking money out of my pockets. And I know she is. And she's cheating on me. And I know she is, except I tolerate it because I'm so low. I think if I can't make this person love me, who could I make love me? My general manager is robbing me blind. So many things going on at once. And I just said, God, this isn't my life. This isn't me. Where do I start? And I got a clear message. And the message was one fire at a time. Just take care of one. Fire the girlfriend, fire the person working for you that's stealing from you. Go to the courts and tell them that the ex-wife has to come up with a number and settle the divorce, or you're going to jail. You're not paying any more money in spousal support. And one by one, I put away all the fires and I got back to me. And I think that that's the question that a lot of people have to ask. And it sounds to me like what your program asks consistently is, who are you?
Yeah.
Not what do you need to do, not what do you want, but who are you? And who you are will determine what you get. Who you are will determine how you live. Who you are in your head will determine what occurs in the course of your life. And so the only time I felt sane when I was going through that hell was when I was on stage and I was teaching other people, because it forced me to stay on track, at least during that amount of time. It also forced me to get out of my head and get into their lives. And I think that that's the biggest lesson for people is that, if you're faced with massive amounts of challenge, don't think about your challenge, solve the challenges of the people around you.
One of my favorite books of all time is Go Giver by Bob Burg. And I feel like and then what you're saying there, I tell people all the time, sometimes my container, I feel selfish because I built this thing that forces me to be at the highest level of accountability of all time. So I'm always, leveling up by default. And then also, when you're helping this many people, there's 6 chemicals that run our life, but we can get into that, which I'm sure you're aware of. But the reality is everyone's addicted to dopamine. Let's just call that card now. And if you're watching this and you don't know that, everybody's an addict. I don't care how cool you think you are. I never thought I was. I don't gamble, drink, smoke. I've never done drugs, but I was addicted to affirmation. I was addicted to people telling me I was awesome, especially women. All that to say, when you help someone else, there's a release of serotonin, and then depending on how much you help them, oxytocin. And that chemical reaction, what it actually does, the addictive properties of that is far greater than any sort of dopamine's a selfish hit, But yeah, if you want to truly find who you are, get lost in the surface of others, and therein lies the answer. And so many people are just so centered on self. It's hard to you can't even explain it. Like, put another zero in my bank account or go help another 100 people win. Like, you'll never ever argue which way I'm going. So,
well, and not now because your brain's on right. And I think
my brain's on right. I like that.
Well, and I think that that's the thing, that there's so much hypnosis going on, and the fact that your program is called The Program, obviously my whole world changed when I realized that everything's hypnosis.
Yep.
That ultimately everything is a choice of belief, and that belief literally causes the world to, in a butterfly type effect, echo back to us.
Yep.
And so since we find what we're looking for, I think that right now we're in really tough times for the general public and the average human, because the amount of data that they're receiving that's absolutely 100% false
Yeah.
is overwhelming right now.
They're polarizing a nation very intentionally, so.
Yeah, they want us divided, because divided they can conquer us.
Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking last night, I was watching my kids' baseball game, and they were way far ahead, and they were 50, it was 15-1.
Oof.
And they're little leaguers. My son's 11, and I knew because his team hadn't been used to winning. I knew they were gonna get overconfident, get cocky.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad, but it was lazy, and I could see it. And all of a sudden, the other team that hadn't done anything, they have a mercy rule, that if by the 5th inning you're 10 runs down, game's over. So they were entering into that 5th inning. They were 14 runs down, and I'll be damned if they didn't have an 11-run rally. It was like they just came to life. And then after the pitcher gave up the 11 runs, they put my son in to pitch. And I love my son so much, clearly. And I know that the biggest thing he's working on is keeping his head on straight. So coming into that clutch kind of a circumstance, there was already 2 outs. They'd already gotten 11 extra runs. All I kept saying, we have a trigger word that we use, and the word is power. And all I kept saying power, knowing that I didn't want him thinking, because that's what was going to get him in trouble. I just want him triggered. And he ended up closing it out. He ended up basically allowing one more run in 2.5 innings and won the game. But it's so much about what's in our head. And that's the thing I teach people. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world. Yeah, it's fallen to crap. Yeah, the present administration is nothing more than a criminal organization. There's no way around the fact that our government has risen to the level of mafiosa. That's where it is right now.
Agreed.
But we still have to live, and we still have to play inside of that game until we can slowly convert the game back to what the American dream is and what it's supposed to stand for, which I still believe in. What are your thoughts when things are so bad like they are right now? What do you tell yourself to keep your mind straight so that you can stay focused and be a better teacher, instructor, dad, and husband?
I mean, we have a very powerful set of tools that we use. And like for this particular scenario, we employ this concept we call the circuit, which is heavily premised off of a book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work, but it's 4 questions. And the first question is just, is it true? So what we do, to your point about belief, is like, I have another sentence I say often, which is we don't see through our eyes, we see through our stories. We see through whatever story that we're so, vehemently attached to, that becomes the version of events. So imagine there's a car accident at a 4-way stop, and there's 4 people standing on each corner. They're all going to see that accident from a different perspective. And the reality is they're so attached to their version of events that becomes their truth. And so when that's your belief, your core belief, you're going to now act a certain way. And when you act a certain way, you get a certain result. And then that result, typically from a place of confirmation bias, just hammers home and cements that belief. And so we call raising the bar. So it's belief, action, result, belief, action, result, belief, action, result. And the reality is, until you can open your mind to the possibility that there's other truths out there. So for example, the accident, the 4-way stop, 4 people see it. To 4 different people, what they saw is their truth. There's no way around it. You will not convince them otherwise. So when we teach our guys how to become the observer. When you can become the observer from a place of facts, not feelings, just observe facts, factual data, and you can step into the shoes of the person on corner 2, 3, and 4 and realize there's multiple truths to the same fact pattern. If you choose to believe so, the premise of this exercise is teaching you that you don't have to be married to your story if it doesn't serve you. Because the thing about humans is they would rather be right than actually win. Yep. Only human being, only animal on this whole planet that is more obsessed with actually being right than experiencing a win. Like battered women will stay in a battered relationship because it's comfortable. Because the devil I know is far less frightening than the devil I don't. And so I know this man's launch sequence. I know I'm going to get hit. I've convinced myself through my programming I probably deserve to get hit, but I refuse to leave this scenario because it's comfortable. And because the story is I deserve it. And then the action is I get hit. And the result is I knew it. I knew it. This is what I deserve, or this is who he is. This is how all men are. And round we go. So I know that was a horrible answer to your question, but the reality is when things are going insane or I'm not particularly pleased, we have, again, so we're really big on binaural beats and solfeggio frequencies. So as a hypnosis, you can imagine, hypnotist, I apologize. Like we teach our guys how to, I can't get everyone into theta, by the way, because theta is difficult, but I do get them into alpha pretty quickly. So we have a lot of series of things we do to get you into a state that allow you to receive different versions of events if you choose to. And once you realize that there's multiple truths and it's not about, again, if you're married to a story and that story is causing a result that doesn't serve you, attach yourself to a new story. And that it sounds woo-woo, and I lose some guys on this until I really show them the science behind it. But yeah, man, it's really about become the observer, look at things from facts, not feelings. Ask yourself, is this working, not working? And then can you adopt a new version of events? Because the reality is it's probably just as true as the one you're married to or attached to. So
we teach something that's similar called objective reality.
Yeah.
And it's the distinction between trance, which is the non-critical acceptance of ideas or concepts on a subconscious level. I say, you do, no question.
Sure.
And objective reality is just a scientific observation of what the circumstances are, not attaching any meaning to it.
Yeah.
And helping people understand that whatever meaning somebody comes up to you and they start screaming at you, you could take it personally if your self-esteem was low and think, oh my God, maybe it's true. Maybe maybe I am a jerk. Maybe I am an idiot. Maybe I am, not worthy of being alive right now. Or you can say that person has the mindset of a 2-year-old. I mean, they're screaming like a spoiled child. This is crazy. It's got nothing to do with me.
Yep.
And the question I always tell people, because they'll ask, okay, so which is better for me? Objective reality? Scientifically looking at the circumstance and saying his blood pressure is high, his volume is raised, spittle's coming out of his mouth, he's saying these words. Do you have objective reality and just observe, or do you hypnotize yourself and give yourself a meaning? And when people ask me which is more powerful, I say yes. I couldn't tell you which is more powerful because we're not in that circumstance. If we were in the circumstance, I could tell you what you should believe.
Yeah.
You can either believe that you're a low life, good for nothing piece of crap. Or you can say, oh my gosh, who in the world hurt this person so badly? They're spewing out that hatred. And how can I assist them? Because frankly, nobody's life, especially theirs, isn't going to be better until they wake up and realize it's all in their head. And I think that solves so much for people to step back and pause and say, okay, what's really going on here? Yeah.
But I think what's sad is like to get people to a level of understanding that concept and then putting it into play, it requires a lot of just self work. Like when you know at your core you're not deserving of that behavior, right? There's not anything you could possibly have done to have deserved what just happened. Where conversely, 90% of this country, it appears right now, is in like a victim mentality. But most of the day, so somehow like they're the poor victim of that guy's behavior. When in reality, and to your point, you can choose not to be. You can choose to help the guy. Like you said, this guy's dealing with he's in pain. That's the reality. Hurt people. Right? Yep. This guy's hurting. He's disrespecting me, which is obviously not okay. And again, you don't have to go above and beyond and be the one who does help him, but you can recognize, to your point, that objectively, this guy's got the issue, not me. And I'm not going to let him project his issues onto me and affect my day, my week, my month, my identity, ultimately, right? For most. So, but these are interesting topics for those that have done the work, I like to say. And then for those that haven't done the work, again, like anything else, right? When I broadcast my message loudly, I get a lot of pushback, but I just encourage, come hang out with us for 2 days. Like you'll see what's possible for you. Like you'll have a massive, we have an event called The Shift, which is, again, if you go back to Napoleon Hill, that, outwitting the devil, he describes that most men and women, most people live in a constant drift, right? Which is where the devil wants you. And so we create this paradigm shift, this massive shift, to basically the pattern interrupt to wake you the F up, to get you moving and figuring out what you really want to do,
And I think, it's semantics, because our program is called Turning Point, because it's the same thing. You change perspective and you change complete view of what you're looking at. Who's your avatar customer? Who are the people that come through your program?
Yeah. Male entrepreneur married with kids.
Any age demographic?
Not really, and we haven't even niched down on business because, again, we're so focused on the driver, not the car. I've been able to scale. I mean, I don't like to talk about numbers because FTC frowns on it, but I mean, I can scale anybody's anything.
FTC frowns on everything.
Yeah, I know. I've just had like a merchant account taken down because I have testimonials. These aren't my words. I have guys that are testifying that, I took a guy I formed his LLC because I used to be a lawyer, right, to $40 million in 2 years. And like, he's saying it, not me. And the FTC throws a fit that we're making these bold claims. And I'm like, what? So like, I can't even speak truth. Don't tell me I can't speak truth because now I want to fight you, So
well,
anyway.
And we're in a time where that's being threatened too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I would agree that it's gotten to the point, because I got attacked by the Nevada Attorney General back in 2000, and they gave me an option. You can either take a $500 fine and a slap on the wrist, and we'll charge you with a misdemeanor, or we're going to charge you with 9 felonies and take you to court. And so they send the agreement over, and it says, I, Marshall Silver, am guilty of 9 felonies because the government's so nice. I'm going to take a misdemeanor. And I said, I can't sign this. If you had just said I'm guilty of a misdemeanor, I might have signed that, because it's, again, what the heck? It's $500, but I'm not going to admit that I'm guilty to something I'm not guilty of. I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. So we went to court, we battled, and I prevailed. We won. But I think most people don't do that. Most people don't fight for what they believe in, because
I'm in a 6-year court battle with California right now for the same exact thing, because they want me to roll over and say I did something I didn't do. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I'm not the guy. Like, it'll be a great chapter for my book. If you want to throw the cuffs on and hit me with something cool, like I'll prevail. I'll figure it out, because this is disgusting. Like, it's a perjury case, but they want me to perjure myself to make it go away. It's kind of like the crux of it. I'm like, who are you guys? What world do we live in right now? You know what I mean? So it's
we live in that world, and we've lived in that world for a while. And again, it comes back to that objective reality. I wish that my world was different, not just for me. I can handle it, and I'm sure my kids can handle it. They will handle it, except I'm so frustrated right now. Our last election was a good example of my level of frustration. I'm a hypnotist. I see past the hypnosis. Yeah. When I see what happened in 2020, and it's not precedented nor even possible what happened. My own brain says, okay, if this is how we're living in the U.S., we don't have a country anymore. Yeah. If this is getting away with robbing me once, okay, we saw the robbery, but doing it consistently, it's like, which I believe it has been pretty consistent. Sure. I think that 2016 was an anomaly, that the powers that be, frankly, didn't cheat enough. They were cocky and they didn't cheat enough. And so the anomaly showed up, but now the anomaly is our reality, meaning so many truths are coming to light. And I think that's the hardest thing. Our reticular observational abilities is we put attention on the thing that's moving. And we don't like things that we thought were true to be proven untrue, even if they're good for us to be proven untrue.
Of course, just like means we're not right. We weren't right, and we have to be right.
It's the battered woman syndrome. Yeah. She has to admit she picked a total loser. The guy wasn't who she thought he was, because in the beginning, if he had said, hey, I'm going to beat you 3 times a day, you're going to be miserable, you're going to hide, and she'd go, well, I'm not marrying you then. Yeah. So you're right. She's got to admit she was wrong. And I think that's what's you got gas prices skyrocketing. You got 7 million plus people coming illegally over the border. You got trillions of dollars being sent to another country we've got nothing to do with. Yep. And again, I didn't mean to rant and get on.
No, trust me when I say we actually we donate heavily to this company called the Sentinel Foundation, which is ran by a gentleman named Matt Murphy, and essentially former Green Beret. They fight child sex trafficking. And so the stuff that he's privy to and the conversations I have with him, and especially the undocumented immigrants, like the things that he, again, has access to, sensitive information, it's pretty frightening how ignorant the general public is, and the things that are percolating in the background. And it's interesting to see all the conspiracy theories slowly proven correct, like time and time again. And like the guys that were like completely pushed out and outcasted, right, for the sake of their wild stories, is now like, oh, that's happening. So
and again, it's a matter of being willing to look at the truth.
Yep.
Back when you were womanizing, I quit drinking alcohol July 12th of last year. I just said, again, it's another. I've drank my fair share. I didn't miss out on anything. And I drank your fair share too, by the way. So thank you for not drinking, because I appreciated that. But the fact of the matter is, I just said, this is your legacy. You're about to turn 43. I turned 62 this year. And I just said, what are the last, depending on how many I get, what are the last 18 years of my life going to look like?
Yeah.
And if I get more, God bless, thank you, God. But if I only get 18 more, what are they going to look like? And I just want them to look like the best years of my life. And I think that, obviously that's what the guys coming to you are all about. The challenge with being able to produce at a high level, like you or your clients, I'm guessing, is that we produce at a high level. And the extra money allows us to get in trouble. It allows us to do really stupid things.
I think more money is exactly that. Sorry to cut you off. I think more money is it's an amplifier. It just amplifies who you are at your core. So if your core values aren't in alignment, with your assignment, and you do have a windfall or what have you, like for the most part, guys that, I don't know, all that to say, yeah, more money will just allow you to be more of a shithead if that's who you are at your core. So,
yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think it magnifies. I think if you were a horrible human being, you're more horrible. If you were kind and generous, you become more kind and generous. Yep. But I also think that even good people with massive windfalls like that, again, we grew up dirt poor. And because we grew up dirt poor, that windfall was, oh my gosh, I must really be special. Yeah. I know I thought that in the beginning. My first $22 million net year, I went, holy cow, Marshall freaking Silver.
Yeah.
And while I still believe that to a degree, not with the level of humility that I have now, having been knocked down so many times.
Yeah.
And I never thought being, I had an ex-wife that was evangelical Christian who frankly, in my opinion, warped the Bible to her own means while she was doing her own stuff. But, she kept saying, you need to be broken. You're just not humbled. You need to be broken. And I never got it. I didn't get it until I was ridiculously broken. And then I went, oh, this is how low you can get. This is how hard it can be. So never forget this. And I don't. But I also think that with that, there has to be a massive amount of courage. I tell people, if you want to get attacked, have an opinion, but have an opinion anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't think, as you said, most people would rather just be right. They'd rather be right than happy or rich. They just want to be right so bad that they can't let go. And, if I have an argument with my wife or my children, and there's a point where I realize I'm wrong, I instantly say, you know what? I'm wrong. You're right. My mistake. Please forgive me.
We see it as an opportunity for growth. And again, that's where the mind shift has to change. I wouldn't say I'm in love with being wrong, but I'm definitely more open to it because it's an instant opportunity for reflection and for growth. And it's a beautiful thing. And, so it's just like, anyway. Yeah. But we live in an echo chamber, which I always have to remind myself, like this thing I'm battling in court. I had my lawyer recently say, look, dude, not everybody lives in a container where like truth is the code and integrity is everything and other people come first. Like this is not you're arguing against a system that ultimately has already, placed its judgment on you. And we're just going to take 6 years and a ton of attorney fees to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so I have to constantly be reminded that like even these conversations, which I absolutely love, they're not everyday convos although I wish they were. I wish we could wake everybody up tomorrow,
But they're not going to be. And because the hypnosis is overwhelming. And, it's the starfish story. And very much we're in that right now, that you're walking down the beach and you got 1,000 starfish and you grab one and throw it in the ocean. And your buddy says, you can't make a difference. There's 1,000. And you said, I made a difference to this one. And I'm going to do all that I can do. And I think that, that's what I want my kids to get, that we may not be able to change everything, except we can change it for some people, and we can change it for the people nearest us, at least to a degree. It's Silent Running, Mike and the Mechanics, Silent Running. I don't know if you remember that song. There's a gun and ammunition just inside the doorway. Use it only in emergency. And teach the children quietly, so one day sons and daughters will rise up and fight while we stood still. And those lyrics to me give me chills, because if nothing else, that's what we've got to do, is live by example. We're in the midst of the Hunger Games right now.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, and it's been so slow, and the creep has been so gradual. We're talking generations of creep, that most people just say, oh no, that couldn't be. And my response is, it is. And if the lockdowns weren't a test run, I don't know what would be.
Yeah.
And that's where we find ourselves. So, what's your thought on how do we turn it around in our current global circumstance? What are your thoughts on how this gets turned around?
I mean, to your point, if we go back to, I think you mentioned the butterfly effect or the ripple effect. I mean, the reality is, I know I can't help 1,000,000 people, but I can help 100 and they can help 100. And so, one of the things we preach in ours, matter of fact, we have an event coming up and we have yet to run an ad. We just tell our members to go tell 10 people because it's getting to a point where, and I don't remember the sentence exactly, where weak men create hard times create, strong men create weak times, and round we go. And you're just watching this country of absolutely weak men right now, which is the biggest reason why we are where we are. And so to me, it starts with the men. I know that maybe sounds like something to some women that might be listening to this.
It does start with the men. I don't think the ladies watching our show have a challenge being treated and respected as women. And I don't think you saying it's up to the men is misogynistic or sexist in any way. It does start with the men. We're the leaders of the household. We are the first line of defense. Yep. And again, I need my wife to play her role. I need her to be the
well, when shit hits the fan and we go Hunger Games, for what it's worth, you'll have a few crazy girls out there with guns, but like you said, it's getting to a point where you're going to have to protect your four walls, and it's going to come down to, like when I see a guy who I know if someone breaks in his house, he can't even. I mean, what's he going to do? And it's not about being jacked or being able to handle a gun, but it's just how are you even showing up in your full masculine? To your point, and we don't really get a lot of pushback from women with our message. And it's because I don't teach my guys to we call it don't dunk on your wife. It's not about, where does the queen sit on the chessboard? She sits directly next to the king, not in front, not behind, not above.
And she's the most powerful piece of the board.
Yeah, she can do it all. We can barely go forward and back like some a-holes. Right. She can multitask, she can flip around. So all that to say is, women, especially once babies are born, they will castrate that house if you don't show up in your full masculine. They don't know any better. Now they're mama bear, So it's I try to tell my guys, one of our go-to books that we recommend is No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. And it's essentially the premise of masculine and feminine energy and why so many men are showing up so feminine that the women have no choice but to show up in their masculine. But they don't want that. They want to be swooned. They want to be supported. They want to show up in the way that they know how. But make no mistake, they will wear both hats because they can. So it's
and they have to. I think about my bride. She never drank alcohol, and we've been together 17 years. And while she frequently encouraged or requested, she never nagged me about drinking. And I was never a mean drunk. That's not my nature, and I didn't let it get in the way of my work because my work ethic is really strong. But I still drank a lot, and I'm at around 300 days at this point. And I asked my wife the other day and asked my kids too, was I different when I drank? And they all said, yeah, you were. I said, was I mean? They said, you weren't mean, but you were kind of cranky sometimes. And I said, I get it. I got it. So, that's the other side of it is people don't realize how much power there is in surrender. People don't realize that you can end any argument that you're in by telling the other person, you're right.
You win. That's it. You're right.
Yep, you're right. You win. I'm an idiot. I'm a moron.
For what it's worth, sometimes that'll trigger them even more, and they're going to keep coming. But yeah,
and they can. But at that point, there's nothing else to do. I saw a video. A guy parks his car. He's running something into a business, but he parks in the handicap space to go run in, and he runs back out. And a guy in a wheelchair wheels up and says, "Dude, you're in the handicap parking space." And he says, "I'm so sorry. I ran in and I was dropping something off. I am so sorry." He says, "Dude, I had to park around the block because your car was here, and I had to wheel myself over here." And then 30 other wheelchairs roll up on the guy. So it was a setup.
Yeah.
And 30 other wheelchairs roll up the guy. He goes, "Guys, I am so sorry. Forgive me. I didn't mean to be so inconsiderate. My fault. I'm an idiot. You're right. It was wrong. I never," just flat out completely apologizes.
Yeah.
And the one guy says, "Well, why don't you get down on our level and apologize so you're not all high and mighty still?" He gets on his knees. He says, "You're right. I'm wrong. I apologize."
Yeah.
And the first guy in the wheelchair stands up, "Give me a hug." Stands up, "Give me a hug," because he wasn't in a wheelchair.
Exactly. Yeah.
Making a point. But that's the point is, how do you get out of that? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Yeah. You're right. You're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You own up.
So hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where we are, that you've got a whole lot of people who wanted to hate Trump, frankly, and now are realizing maybe they were wrong, but you got to hold on to your side of the argument a little longer just so that you look good.
Safe
And I
face.
say no. I wish Biden was the best president we ever had. Of course,
Yeah,
I
it
do.
would be easier. It wouldn't bother
I'm
me.
an American, and that's what I
Yeah.
want for my country and my kids.
Yeah.
It's just not true. It's
Yeah.
just every example, every indication is that the destruction is intentional.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what people don't want to believe, is that the people that we believe are, because the government's our parent. It's our authority figure in our life, and I want the authority figures in my life to love me. And I think that that's the challenge when we realize that these particular authority figures have nothing to do with us, that 100% of what they're doing is about their enrichment and their wealth and their better position in life. When we take that objective reality look and say, this doesn't make any sense. Why are they attacking me for this thing over here when we've got murderers coming illegally across the border? Again, I'm all for legal immigration 100%.
Sure.
Illegal immigration is just that. It's illegal immigration. And I refuse to call somebody undocumented when they're an undocumented thief. What does that mean? Well, they stole and didn't get caught.
Yeah.
Okay. They're still a thief. They're
Yeah.
still, and so for me, what it really is about is empowering people doing good, pointing out the people that are not doing good, and getting back to doing good as quickly as possible. So if that's all we start doing is figuring out what's working, focusing on that, calling out what's not working and letting it go, but we got to call it out too. What do you think?
Well, that, to your point, that's where people are scared. It's like you said, you want to get attacked, have an opinion, or have an opinion anyway. I think people are frightened to really, really say what they're thinking. And it's obviously cancel culture, and just look at us. Like I'm going to stand up for what's right and my authority. And you deal with Nevada, I'm dealing with California. They want to do what they're going. There's no rhyme or reason. They just get to flex their authority and, arbitrarily make decisions that are mind blowing. It does make it a little more difficult to want to speak up when you watch the constant injustice that's going on in this world. So,
well, and I think, again, everything happens for a purpose and it serves us. I've shared the stage with Trump on 30 occasions, so I know him on a level other
Nice.
people don't. I've sat backstage in the green room where it was just the two of us, where he had no reason to pose or be anything other than no posturing going on at all. And I saw the real man. I saw him giving considerations backstage where other very well-known speakers that were on the same roster weren't giving considerations and respect. I watched him be extra kind and considerate to people he didn't need to. I also had been backstage with him 30 times. I've never shook his hand. Why? Because when I knew him, he was a germaphobe. He didn't like touching anybody. And so the first time I saw him campaigning in 2016 and all the evangelical Christians were laying hands on him and everybody was making a big deal in the media about how uneasy he looked. See, he can't even stand for Christians to touch him. I'm thinking he can't stand for anybody to touch him. He don't want anybody touching him. Yet he's tolerating it because he realizes that's the job he's asking for now.
Yeah.
And I think that all of the attacks that we're seeing, I mean, the attacks have gotten to an insane level where there's no crime whatsoever. The banks are saying, no, we like doing business. We invite more business with him. He didn't lie to us at all. But the government's still saying, oh, no, he lied to you. And they're going, he didn't. There's no battling that. So everybody should know, if you're in the upper 1% of the population as far as wealth is concerned, and you were president of the United States, you can still get attacked.
Yeah,
that's not going to change. So what has to change is, how do we handle the attacks? Do we handle them? Do we stand up and fight, or do we, like most people, just roll over and say, okay, because that only empowers the attackers. When I was a kid, we didn't have any money, so I wore my sister's clothes to school. And I distinctly remember 6th grade when Jerry Romine, the school bully, was beating me up for wearing my sister's purple hip huggers. And I said, enough's enough. And I started swinging back and I beat the crap out of him. And he never beat me up again.
Yeah.
He never beat me up. He never bullied my friends like he had previously. Nothing. Why? Because I put him on notice. And I think that the majority of the United States population are patriots and are like us. I think that we want
the silent majority right now. We all need to start speaking up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
All at once.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that is that we're more polite than the hard left. We tend to respect people, listen to their opinion. And again, I look forward to a time where I can have a completely opposing opinion with other people and we still like each other.
And have a dialogue. And yeah, exactly. And like not go who's louder and more aggressive wins. It's like that's what disgusting behavior, you know? Yep. I mean, it is hard to say out loud the checklist, but yeah, you can argue, you know, more intelligent, more, you know, the way that you carry yourself, more composed,
higher emotional intelligence.
Exactly, which is crucial. Exactly. Yeah.
So before we wrap
up, yeah.
Yeah, I could talk to you all day. I appreciate what you stand for. I appreciate what you're doing. And I wasn't aware that the program referred to exactly the basis of the entire program. And I love it because, again, for me, it's everything. And if people will only communication equals wealth. And if people will communicate better first internally and then with the outside world, every single challenge of their life will be handled. Yeah. And I think that's what people don't get. Before we wrap, any last things that you want people to know? Any way to get a hold of you? When is your next seminar?
It's in 3 weeks. It's May 20th to 22nd out here in Nashville. So
how many people going to be there?
We limited to 25, so it's cool. It's a 40 acres, 90-foot waterfall. We rent out everyone gets a cabin. I mean, it's, you know, so food's covered. It's pretty impressive, food, lodging, everything. We take you out in the woods and we wake you up, and we do. We've got some crazy people coming. Everything you need will be there, again, by design. I want you to have every tool, so then you have no excuse but to pick them up.
Will there be guns? Will there be guns?
No, but we just secured 50 acres here in Nashville, and we're going to do some crazy stuff there. It's slowly becoming the compound that may be more necessary than I would like to admit, given the current climate, right? So, yeah.
Well, let me know when your event has guns, and I'll be there.
Okay, I'll just bring some guns. Yeah, I mean, I would love to have you. I'd love to have you out and come speak. I mean, obviously, we're 100% in alignment in terms of the way that we operate and what we're trying to do on this planet before we leave. You know,
and I'd love to have you on my stage too. That would be great. So how do people get a hold of you to find out more information?
Reprogram.ai. So reprogram.ai will get you to, you know, all the information you need. And then my personal calendar, which I always offer when I love the podcast that's hosting it, so you don't get like one of my coaches, you get me, is timewithnick.net. So just timewithnick.net, and you could jump on a 30-minute call and we could just solve a cool problem or just connect and see if there's any synergy, or if you want to hear about the event, great. Like I'm like the least salesy guy ever. I should probably take your advice on, you know, forcing my product on people, because the reality is it works, you know, phenomenally. I'm just kind of like, I'm in this weird hippie state right now where, like, you know, whoever's supposed to hear my message will hear it, and, you know, whoever's supposed to be in the room will be in the room, and here we go. But I need to definitely get a little more aggressive with the marketing campaign.
Yeah, I agree. You need to be more assertive. And I went through that. You know, I went through the great epiphany at one point where I pendulum swung to the other side. Oh, I don't want any money.
I was such an aggressive closer that now I have this story that I do. It's funny you say it. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I literally called the pendulum. I was like, I swung the pendulum so far from like NLP, closer, you know, Wolf of Wall Street, Boiler Room, Glengarry Glen Ross. Like I was that guy, and now it's like, oh, I'll just float over here, and my man will take care of me because I'm only doing good. I mean, but it needs to move faster. We need to get louder, you know. So
I agree. Well, I appreciate you getting loud on my show. You're an excellent guest. I would love to have you back again. Until we meet, make it an awesome day, and thanks so much. Keep it up.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for everything you're doing. I appreciate you, Beth.
You betcha. Take care, Nick. God bless. Yeah, if you want to get a hold of Nick, reprogram.ai. Good stuff. Hey, I'm Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Thanks so much for being with me today. We have the best guests. I really appreciate Nick and all the guests we get on the show. Same time, same place tomorrow. I'll see you then. Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show coming up 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. I'm going to give you content, information, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice for having it all. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. So stay tuned.